Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Angela McCrae, board member of the Cosmobiology Institute, and it is my honor to welcome you all to today's event, Exploring Research, Software, and Techniques. I would like to begin by reading the mission statement of our organization. The Cosmobiology Institute is dedicated to the empirical verification of relationships between cosmic phenomena with organic life and to the practical application of these observations and discoveries. The Cosmobiology Institute is dedicated to the application of scientific methods to determine the nature of things, regardless of whether those discoveries may be comfortable or uncomfortable for some people to accept. As a nonprofit organization dedicated to furthering scientific understanding and developing applications that improve the lives of people, the Cosmobiology Institute provides a range of services that are free or involve minimal cost, as well as services that can be further developed by private businesses and governmental agencies without intellectual property constraints. Open source software, training programs, and publications are some of the forms in which the Cosmobiology Institute provides or will provide these services. I encourage you all to go to cosmobiology.org to view more information about our organization. This evening, we welcome back Christopher Benton, Vincent, Godbout, and Santino Mancuso. We have planned an hour and a half for this evening, but we'll have time at the end for any questions and a panel discussion with our presenters. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat during the presentations, and we will do our best to get them all answered. First, I would like to welcome Christopher Benton, who has a PhD in mathematics, and his most recent publication is Pisces More Likely to Have Heart Problems, appears in the current volume of Correlation magazine. Welcome, Christopher.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I go ahead and share my screen now?
Please do.
Okay, I'm going to talk about using Astro Databank, a free online resource and database for research. And just give me a minute while I share my screen. And I have to get rid of a few panels here so I can see what I'm doing. So just bear with me. Hold on. Okay, can you see that screen and hear me okay?
Yes. Looks great. Thank you.
Great. So this is doing astrological research with Astro Databank. And down below, I have the web address for Astro Databank. And if you put that in your browser, well, I'm going to say a couple of things about the pros and cons of Astro Databank first before I show you what comes up in your browser. And among the pros are that it's a free online database. Anyone can use it. Also, it contains over 77,000 horoscopes. And these horoscopes are categorized in multiple ways, such as vocation and major diseases. And very importantly, the horoscopes are categorized according to the accuracy of their birth data, what is known as their Rodin rating. And Astro Databank also comes with a built-in query system that is both very flexible and easy to use. You can filter through the data in a lot of different ways. Now, among the cons of Astro Databank, however, are that there are serious gaps in some of the information provided by Astro Databank. For example, only 2 people in the database are classified as having attention deficit disorder, and that's surely an undercount. And because of some of these gaps in its data, it's always a question of how well results found using Astro Databank will apply to the entire population. But I should point out that's usually a question that you can have about just about any databank that you or any database that you use. Are the results from that database really going to apply to the entire population? And while Astro Databank allows you to search, for example, for several types of aspects, it doesn't allow you to search for the lesser used minor aspects such as the septile or the novile. So in other words, queries are limited only to those items that Astro Databank allows. They have a lot of things you can search and filter by, but eventually we always want more. So, with that said, here's something that I often wind up saying. We often have to do statistics not with the data we want, but with the data we have. So we do the best we can with what we have available. Okay, now I want to show you how you can use Astro Databank to help you find answers to questions that you want to research. In this case, my research question is going to be, does having Pluto square Uranus increase your likelihood of dying from cancer? And the assumption that Pluto square Uranus might be linked to cancer, it seems rather reasonable since Pluto represents death and destruction in astrology, and Uranus seems to resonate with the wild, uncontrolled growth of cancer. And it's maybe an interesting coincidence or synchronicity that Uranus sounds a lot like uranium and Pluto sounds like plutonium. And both of those substances can cause cancer. However, it's only going to be statistical tests that can provide us with a good and accurate answer as to whether or not there is a relationship between something like Pluto square Uranus and getting and probably dying from cancer. And I'm just going to take you step through a lot of screens to show you how you can get some answers of a sort to this question using both Astro Databank along with your iPhone. Okay. Now, I have a couple of other things I want to say. First, when doing statistical tests involving astrology, I almost always use tests for proportions, such as the chi-square test or the z-test for two proportions, Fisher's exact test, and the g-test. I do this because I believe this is how astrology developed informally in the first place. In other words, ancient astrologers probably observed things like people born with Mars square moon seem to have more accidents more often than people without this aspect. And then they pass that on as a rule for interpretation. All that statistics does is it takes that sort of informal analysis and it formalizes it to determine whether these differences are really due to chance or not. Consequently, I believe that most rules in astrology can be either confirmed or refuted simply by using tests for proportions. Okay, now, when you go to that web address for Astro Databank, got it right up here, this is a screen that's going to pop up. And you're going to have a default range for dates. In this case, now going from 1900 to 2025. Now, Astro Databank has a lot of horoscopes for people born before 1900, but I usually begin with 1900 because I think of the 20th century as the century where we started keeping very good and extensive records on people. And I also have circled down below ratings. This refers to the Rodden rating. And if I click on this little triangle next to the ratings, that will expand it. And I usually select only Rodden ratings of B, A, or AA. If I use charts that have these Rodden ratings, then I have pretty good confidence in the birth data. And over here, I can click on this triangle next to diagnoses. It will expand. One of the categories under diagnoses will be major diseases. I expand that, and I'm going to put a check mark. I'll select cancer here. Okay, now, if I scroll down this page, it's going to open with a filter that I could fill in. And if I click on in any of places, these places allows you to find planets in a particular sign or a particular house or element or some other things. But if I click on in any places, I can change that to in any aspect. Well, I'm going to do that later, but for now, I'm going to click on the X up here. I want to get rid of my filter entirely. I'm not ready to use it quite yet. Instead, I'll go to the very bottom of the page. I'll click on Show Results. And remember, I have cancer checked up above. When I clicked on Show Results, this is what I'm going to see. And it's going to tell me that from or between 1900 and 2025, they had 1,488 people who had cancer, and the vast majority of those people who were flagged as having cancer, they're people who died of cancer. There are going to be a few celebrities here and there who had cancer and recovered, but for the most part, we can consider this as representing people who died of cancer. Okay, now let's see. Um, If I scroll down and look at the very first person in this list, I see that there were people in 1900 who died of cancer. If I go to the last person in the list, uh, the last person they have in their database who had cancer had it in 2001. Okay, so I'm going to go back to search. And by the way, if you want to go back to that original opening search page, don't click on the back arrow here. If you click on the back arrow, that's going to take you entirely out of Astro Databank to whatever you were doing previously. So get in the habit of clicking back on search. That takes me back to my opening page. And here I'm going to change that date range so that it goes from 1900 to 2001 instead of 2025. And I've got my Rodden rating B, A, and AA selected, and I have cancer selected. And now I'm ready to add a filter. So I go down to the bottom of the page, I click on Add Filter, and I'm going to click on in any of places up here. I'll change it to any in any of aspects to, and now I just click on Pluto, Square, Uranus. It's just that simple. Okay, if I click on Show Results again at the bottom of the page, this is the number that pops up, 246 records. And that is telling me that there were 246 people in the database with these Rodden ratings and that range of dates, 246 people who had Pluto square Uranus, and they also had cancer. Now, if I click on Back to Search, I'm going to unselect cancer. And let's see, I'll click on Show Results again. And this number pops up, 4,603. That tells me that there were 4,603 people who had Pluto square Pluto square Uranus. And that includes both those that had cancer and those that didn't. Okay, now I've collected half of the data I need. I'll go back to search. I'll select cancer again, but now I'll scroll down to toward the bottom of this page. And up here, previously this just said have all these objects, Pluto in this aspect, to this object, Uranus. Well, I can click on this and change this from have to not have. So now I want to look at the people within this date range who did not have Pluto square Uranus. And let's see, if I go back up, I still have cancer selected. So if I click on Show Results, this shows me there were 1,242 people who had cancer but did not have Pluto square Uranus. Okay, go back to search again, unselect cancer, click on Show Results, and this tells me that there were 46,016 people who had Pluto square Uranus, and some of those had cancer, some didn't. Wow. That is going to give me all the data that I need for my test. I'm going to take a quick sip of water here. So I've got these two groups to compare. I've got one group of people that had Pluto square Uranus. And this group had 4,603 people. Of that group, 246 had cancer, and the majority of them died from cancer. And the proportion of people with cancer in this group was 5.3%. In my second group, this is a group of people who did not have Pluto square Uranus. And within this group, 1,242 had cancer. Most of them died. And the corresponding proportion was 2.7%. And if I compare this percentage to this percentage, that gives us what we call the risk ratio. And with a risk ratio of 1.98, this shows that the people with Pluto square Uranus were almost twice as likely to have cancer as the people who did not have Pluto square Uranus. Now, when we look at these percentages, it looks like a pretty big difference. But the real question is this a statistically significant difference? And by that we mean, is this a difference that could have easily occurred just due to random chance? Or is this difference between this percentage and this one over here very unlikely to have happened by chance? And that is the kind of question that a statistical test can answer. Okay, now I have a couple of more things to say here before I do my test. The test that I'm going to use is called a z-test for two proportions. And I would usually do this test using either the free statistics program R or my TI-84 calculator. However, since many of you may not own a TI-84 calculator or be familiar with how to use R, I'm going to show you how to do this test in a free app for the iPhone called Calculate 84. This app acts just like a TI-84 calculator. If you don't have an iPhone, then there may be a similar app available for whatever smartphone you do have. Furthermore, I want to make the point that we rarely, if ever, prove anything beyond a shadow of a doubt with statistics. We take snapshots of data in time, and it is all too easy to forget that the data we are studying also changes with time. Thus, levels of significant and other measures are in a constant state of flux. And the best we can do is to arrive at more or less confidence in certain conclusions. But keep in mind that both data and conclusions can change over time, and that p-values, this p stands for probability, these are not written in stone. Not only will p-values change as the data changes, but different statistical tests will generally return slightly different p-values. Okay, other thing I want to say is that the criteria that is usually used for determining significance is p equal to 0.05. The letter p again stands for probability, and the p-value we calculate is our estimate of the chance of getting the result we observed, or something even more extreme. And if our calculated p-value is less than or equal to 0.05, then we consider the result statistically significant. In other words, a low p-value means that it's unlikely that our result is due to chance. Instead, it means that it is likely that there are real differences in our data. Additionally, one usually begins every statistical test with a statement that nothing unusual is going on. And this statement is called the null hypothesis. Null means nothing. So we begin assuming nothing unusual is happening. However, if we conclude that something is occurring that is likely not due to chance, then we reject our null hypothesis and we accept an alternative hypothesis instead. And throughout this process, our mantra is always, if the P is low, the null must go. So that's a good mantra to remember. Okay, now let's talk about this app and do our statistical test. If you have an iPhone, if you go to the App Store and search for Calculate 84, this is what will come up. And since I have it already installed on my iPhone, I can just click on Open. And if you've ever seen a TI-84 calculator, the layout here looks just like the keyboard on your TI-84. And what I'm going to do is click on or tap on Stat. And when I do that, it's going to bring up this screen with some menus here. And additionally, it's going to be the edit screen you look at, but what you want to go to are tests. Now, down here, I've circled these arrows. You can use these arrows to navigate through menus on this application, going left, right, up, or down. And let's see, if I go over to tests and hit enter, or if I just tap on tests, then a menu is going to appear with lots and lots of really great statistical tests that you can do. You can do this all just on your iPhone. You can scroll down using these arrow keys to number 6, or you can just tap on 6 and hit enter. And number 6 is 2-prop z-test. That is the the z-test for 2 of these proportions. Okay. Now when I select that, all you have to do is take those numbers that I got for each sample, the number of people with Pluto square Uranus, we had 4,603. That becomes N1. The number of people with that aspect who had Cancer, 246, that becomes X1. And then for our second group, the group of people without Pluto square Uranus, we put in that total number, 46,016. And then we put in the number of people who actually had cancer. Again, in Astro Databank, most of those people died of the cancer, and that's 1,242. Down below that, you have to specify what your alternative hypothesis is going to be. And going into this thing, I was anticipating, excuse me, that the proportion for my group that had Pluto square Uranus, the proportion of people with cancer in this group would be bigger than the proportion of people in the second group, the group of people without Pluto square Uranus. So using my arrow keys here, I can go over here and select P1 greater than P2, proportion 1 greater than proportion 2, and then hit enter. And then you scroll a little further down this screen using arrow keys, and you select calculate, and you hit enter. And then your results are going to appear. Now, the one you're really going to be looking for is the one that has P equal. This is going to be your p-value. Now here, the p-value was actually so small that I reached a limitation of my iPhone to do the calculations. It's so small that it just put p equal to 0, and 0 is certainly less than 0.05. But to get a little bit more exact result, I did this on my TI-84 calculator, and I came up with P equal to 2.067619 times 10 to the minus 24th power. Now that is extremely small. And to tell the truth, when you get something this small, you worry that you've either entered something wrong into your calculator, hit a wrong button, or you worry that this might be just a fluke, a statistical artifact, as we call it. And that is a possibility. But if we take that p-value as being correct, then it's incredibly low, and that suggests that the results obtained are very unlikely to be due to chance. A result of our observations being due to chance, it's estimated to be about 2 times 10 to the minus 24 power. Very small. However, in practice, I would also look at other things such as links between Cancer and squares Pluto to other planets. I would check to see if my results replicate themselves over 2 different time periods, and I would try to do as many things as I can to rule out this result being a statistical fluke. It's hard to rule it out completely, but I'm showing you just sort of one part of a much larger study I've done. And there are things in the larger study which suggest that maybe this is not a statistical fluke. So hopefully a paper I have written that contains a fuller analysis will be published this summer in the next issue of the peer-reviewed journal Correlation. But nonetheless, this presentation today should give you everything you need to begin exploring data that is available at Astro Databank. And if you're a statistician, if you have some training in statistics, you can just go ahead and jump into it. If you don't have much of a background in statistics, well, you can still get started. We need people to start looking at data no matter what level they're at mathematically or statistically. And you can take what's in this presentation, you can go out to Astro Databank and explore things. And if you have an iPhone, you can download this app and you can go through the steps I went through today to see if you get results that look statistically significant. And if you find something interesting, you can send it up the pipeline to cosmobiology or to me, and we can look at it in more detail. But it'd really be great to get everyone in astrology to start looking at data, even if they're not trained as a statistician at this point. You can begin looking at things, and things that look interesting to you, you can pass on to other people with more knowledge of statistics. And that is the end of my presentation. So I'll
Christopher, yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I think the highlight of this is that anybody can work on data, can work on research.
yeah.
I have to admit, it's been a while since I've been on Astro Databank, but I had no idea that it had those features to be able to search like that. So thank you so much, and at no cost either. So
It would
um,
really be great if everyone starts looking at data,
yes,
regardless, and you can do it regardless of what level you're at statistically.
yeah, that's fabulous. Thank you so much. And also, your slides will be available afterwards at the end of the Zoom. Right when you hit leave the meeting, a survey will pop up. All you need to do is select that you would like more information on Christopher's presentation, and I will email that to you so you can have those available. Thank you. Next, I would like to welcome back Vincent Godbout, a software developer and astrological researcher. He was recently a speaker at Kepler Day in London and published the article, A Predictive Model of Mortality Using Secondary Progressions in Correlation magazine. Welcome, Vincent.
Hello.
Hi.
I share my screen.
Yes, please.
It's not the sharing. Excuse me.
We can see your PowerPoint.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see myself.
We see you.
Yeah, but I don't see it. I see everybody. Okay. What's going on there? Excuse me. Okay. You see my
Yes.
PowerPoint. Okay. Let's go. Mastro Expert software helps interpret charts by treating astrological information in a new way. This astrological expert system includes a corpus of keywords. This led to a mathematical word approach to astrology, astrolinguistics, compiling interpretation from 25 prominent astrological authors. I generated interpretation in the form of keywords for combined factors, cross-referencing meanings of planets and signs with planets and aspects. Everton's midpoints also were included. This is the chart of Dalai Lama. If we just focus on sextile moon Virgo to Jupiter Scorpio, this is an example. To find a mixed interpretation of this combination, Maslo's expert system looked for personality traits representing all what is found in common between moon Virgo and moon sextile Jupiter. I'll let you think about that. What could be the interpretation of these combined factors? So you have to take into account the meaning of both simultaneously. Here's the answer by Mastro. Maternal instinct, generosity, goodness, kind. I'll let you read. Master Expert uses 2,885 keywords from these factors as building blocks for its synthesis algorithm, assigning them scores based on their frequency in a chart. The probability rarity of a repeated message measures its significance. I first published this concept in Considerations, the late magazine, in 1988 to quantify significance with probabilities. A keyword gets a high score if it's frequently repeated in a chart. The higher the score of a keyword, the more its repeated presence in a chart is unlikely and therefore significant. We must also consider keyword frequencies in the entire corpus as they affect the probability of a word appearing in a specific chart. For example, if you have the word ambition repeated 4 times in a chart, it's not as meaningful as having the word, for instance, inhibition repeated 4 times. Inhibition is more unlikely on a random scale because it's much less common than ambition in any astrological corpus. So in this example, inhibition will score much higher than ambition in Mastro Expert despite both having 4 occurrences. 2-level synthesis trees of keyword. The expert system synthesizes a natal or event chart into a 2-level keywords tree by calculating and ranking hundreds of weighted words. In the synthesis, the Mastro Expert groups the primary keywords in order to according to their scores. And it groups the secondary keywords under the primary keywords according to an analogy criterion, presenting everything in the form of a 2-level tree.
We have here, as an example of synthesis, the Dalai Lama 14 with its highest scoring keywords presented in the form of a 2-level tree. On the first level, in bold, the primary keywords that express the main meaning. And on the second level, the secondary keywords which, thanks to an embedded thesaurus, contextualize the primary keywords by being connected with them by analogy. Let's look at a few signatures. If you click on a keyword in the tree, say compassion, that keyword and its astrological signature will be displayed. The signature of a keyword is a set of astrological factors that include that keyword in their interpretations. If you click on the signature of the keyword,
Whoops.
here, compassion, the window factors and associated keywords pops up, displaying all the factors of the signature with all their keywords, including the given one highlighted in red. Let's see another example. Mysticism. Repeated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times.
Ultimately, then, keywords are tools for finding astrological factors with dominant converging meanings. The forecast curves. Mastro forecast curves allows us to locate at a glance the most important moments according to transits in the time interval chosen by the user. Those moments are identified by observing the highest peaks of the curves. To create all the curves, the numerical scores of about 72 different event keywords are calculated for several consecutive transit charts and represented as a graph in time. Each point of a curve summarizes the complete analysis of a transit chart in a specific theme expressed by a keyword.
Celine Dion. I thought of examining with you a very serious ordeal for Celine, who lost her husband and manager, René Angélil, and her brother Daniel 2 days apart. The deaths occurred on January 14th of 2016 and 2 days later. The question we can ask ourselves is, if we had looked at Celine Dion charts a few years ago, could we have made a prognosis of those deaths? Mastro Expert has a technique to do this, a natural technique that is based on the transits. When I say transits, I mean the transits of aspects and the transits of midpoint also. Look here, I had Mastro do the transits every day from 2014 to 2016. In the upper part of the screen, we have a sort of agenda. In the case of Celine Dion, the first word we would be inclined to look at is morning. So I click on morning and the graph will appear. Only the highest peaks interest us, especially here, the highest one. Let's see. It is situated on the 20th of January 2016. Therefore, over 2.5 years, it falls at only 4 days of the death of his brother and 6 days after the death of René Angélil. Now look, if I click on the peak here, it will take us exactly to the 20th of January 2016. And we can see that there is the word morning, which is dominant with a very, very high score, 7.7, and the word death. If I open here, we can see the signature of the word morning. We're not surprised to find the transit Pluto square Saturn. It is accompanied by 5 midpoints that act as co-significators and triggers, and that were not easily visible to the naked eye.
Benton himself and the cosmobiologists may not have fully grasped the importance of the midpoint transits because they did not have computer technology to fully realize that. It's important to understand the necessity of locating a transit in its temporal context over a long period of time and not to be satisfied with only one reading. Not only are the forecast curves a useful predictive tool for the consultant who wants to have a year-long overview for his client, but they are also a wonderful research tool since every day where nothing happens form a sort of control group. In 2016, I saw the potential of Mastro's expert system for fundamental research. The matching test. I sought to replicate Carlson's famous matching test, a key argument of anti-astrologers. Automation has been used to counter skeptics' claim that if any truth were ever found in astrology, it could be attributed to human extrasensory perception, which academics take more seriously than astrology. The research tested the accuracy of astrological keywords from natal chart, as we've seen, against character trait keywords in biographies. In this matching test, lists of biographical traits were compared with lists of astrological traits. I created an automated mathematical tool not included in Mastro, but I give it if on request, free. it's in Excel, to compare the two lists. The semantic proximity estimator, you may write it down if you want to remember. You can find on YouTube an overview of the basic principles of the semantic proximity estimator, a 10 minutes video that was essential for this research, as well as several other research projects. The matching test with 73 notabilities required making a big number comparison using the semantic proximity estimator between biographical list and astrological list, try to find the best matches. Look at the matrix it gave. This is in Excel, the names with astro traits and bio traits with comparison. The matching test published that was my first article in Correlation, showed significant results. Actually, there are 8 binomial case, like 1 success or 2 success. Being second or third on 73 up to 8. And look at they're all significant. Astro Expert also enabled mundane research. The COVID pandemic, forecasting the global social climate. Astro Expert was successful in predicting global health policy during the COVID pandemic by examining successive daily world charts and keywords over the course of the 20th and 21st century. It was not on a one country, it was universal. Whether we agree or not, the pandemic has led to significant restriction worldwide, which some have even called a health dictatorship. I have selected 10 hypothetical keywords to describe this context. Those words are included in the master corpus. I'll let you read. Look at the words. It's hypothetical. Using Astro Expert, I calculated 16,317 astrological charts from 1915 to 2050 every 3 days, obviously excluding moon, angles, and houses, generating a list of keywords for each chart, kind of ephemeris of keywords instead of factors, astrological factors. The semantic proximity estimator compared those astrological lists with the 10 authoritarian keywords, evaluating similarity and providing scores for each comparison. Using Excel, here's the graph I obtained on those years, from 15 to 2050. You see the peak here from this graph. After the peak in October 20, the final descent begins at the end of October 22 here. This is the beginning of the final descent. So this allowed me to predict more than a year in advance that the strict health policy would really ease from that point on. Read what I found in just by asking GPT. I let you read this. Between October and December, exactly in 22. What it means, the bottom here, the peak at the bottom, it's very remarkable. It's not a peak, it's a true. In 2030, what could it mean? Any idea? The contrary of authority? Maybe anarchy? The two-level hierarchical regression. Astrolinguistics enables a new approach research that relies on a kind of two-level hierarchical regression based on keywords, reflecting human thinking more accurately than linear regression based solely on astrological factors. By using combination of keywords corresponding to sets of astrological factors, this approach reflects human cognitive processes and align with astrological validity, introducing a new paradigm in research and interpretation. By combining keywords, we use the underlying astrological factor without explicitly addressing them. This facilitates subtle combination of factors and improve intuitive analysis because we work with words, as the computer handles complex astrolinguistic calculation, allowing astrologers to focus on higher level thinking. whoops. For instance, subtle combination. No, I read it. For instance, analyzing a keyword such inhibition in an event context involves identifying its full astrological signature. To find it, we go on tools. Here, interpretation query. We got the full master corpus keywords, inhibition, event, and I click search and I got it. Here are the 182 event astrological factors for inhibition, aspects, and a lot of midpoints. Instead of using these astrological factors directly, this approach relies on the keywords derived from these set of factors, thus favoring a more integrative framework of an interpretation. Speaking of inhibition, I use multiple regression to study the relationship between secondary progression and month of death. This is my last article in correlation. I chose time of death for the study because it's easy to document and well-defined. The aim was to test whether secondary progression could predict month of death. So I designed an astrological model to establish a link between secondary progression and time of death by identifying a combination of weighted astro-linguistic factors that could predict the month of death. I'll let you read silently. For each deceased test subject, I calculated their secondary progression on the date of death and for the 500 months preceding it, incrementally moving back 1 month at a time, covering about closely to 42 years. For each subject, these 500 secondary progressions serve as the control group, representing months when the subject did not die. I use a sample of 650 death months from 650 subjects. The control group is a lot more, 500 more. And I have also a validation group after the fact when I have my model of 203 subjects. That was a big job. And I use Astro Data Bank also to get my validation group. Instead of astrological factor, I had, this is important, remember the 72 general event keywords? I used all those keywords for the model. Some keywords are connected positively and other keywords are connected negatively. Astro Expert calculated and recorded all secondary progressions, both direct and converse. Then, as an example of a secondary progression, here, Claudio Abado Dat, a weighted list of keywords generated by Maestro on this, you see the progressions on his 20 January 14. There's one word in this list that will be extremely significant in the final death prediction model. Can you guess what it is? You don't have death, but the answer is inhibition. Exporting keywords is a way to export the Master Expert keyword list for one or many, because I didn't talk about that. It's doing automatically in a CSV file that can be transferred and processed in an Excel file. So there's a feature called animation in Master Expert that you see on the left that allow you to do it automatically. Here are the settings for Master Animation to export the 501 interpretive list of secondary progression. 1 month step backward from that. So you choose the unit, month, then you choose backward direction, then number of times, 501, and you start, and everything is done automatically, and it falls on your I don't remember the word, sur le bureau. Behind this 72 event keywords, there are 232 aspects and 858 midpoints. For the keywords, I use Master scores for each secondary progressions. Let's see how I use multiple keywords modeling to investigate the relationship. Whoops, between secondary progressions and the month of death. Model and result, weights, model, results, weights. Good numerical coefficient can be assigned, numerical coefficient are weights, to keyword factor, but not arbitrarily. The numerical coefficient are assigned through an optimization with Excel solver, which is very practical to research, to find the best weighted combination of keywords for predicting the amount of depth. The weights we're going to vary from minus 100 and to 100. So I'm looking for calculating to find the best weights combination. It searches and finds the combination of weights that will make the mean of the sample score, the month of death, significantly higher than the mean of the control score, the month of non-death. The goal is to maximize the difference between those two mean to get the p-value as low as possible, as it Christopher explained to you. The model, here's the model, the 72 words with their weights. If you isolate the low negative weights, means that those words are absent at the time, significantly absent at the time of that. It's not surprising to find creativity, purpose, success, and encounter. Those words are really absent with very low weights. Other keywords have positive weights. These words are significantly present at the time of death. As I told you, inhibition, confusion, and suffering. With large weight of, as we see, they're key players in the model. This is very important. This is astounding. Through a purely mathematical and totally objective statistical process, it's very exciting. We arrive at maximal positive weights for inhibition, suffering, and confusion, which, while not explicitly mentioning that, evokes its context in a plausible way. Why death itself is not among the key players, with only 66 occurrences connected to 66 factors in Maslo's astrological corpus, this word is simply too rare to gain a statistical significance. The results, the model gives you a p-value of e minus 54. So it's like 53.0 after the, the dot. So, but this is not so exciting because it's based on the 650 subject study sample. It looks impressive, but it's meaningless without validation. Validation result with the replication -8, which is honorable, more than honorable. The p-value and a big effect size of 0.42. Master expert and AI. I'm 40. Is it correct if I go a little bit more than 25 minutes, or I could stop here?
You can go ahead if you need to,
Oh,
Vincent.
thank you. For the moment, AI in astrology seems to be smoke and mirrors. Although it can generate decent interpretive text for chart factors, it won't synthesize them, making its results similar to the copy-paste of current astrological software. Astrological often find these interpretations worthless, and they're right. No significant evolution since the 60s. And it's funny to see that astrologers make queries to ChatGPT, and it's nothing more than what you can find in books or Google or by Googling. It's not exciting. Garbage in, garbage out. Some say that AI will one day be able to make good interpretations. Only to wait. An exception has been around for months. Astro expert. Since 23, AI has been generating high-quality narrative from the results of Mastro 2-level astro-linguistic tree. Its expert system prepares the AI by generating keyword lists sent to a chatbot to craft narrative. Very important, the AI doesn't really need astrology knowledge. The work is done upstream. it relies solely on its linguistic skills, proven effective by advancement in translation software. And we know that since many years. Nothing new. Feeding AI with master word lists yields astonishingly precise and clear results. For a natal event analysis, the outcomes are often breathtaking, allowing you to identify people or events with even minimal clues. I recently gave a 5-lesson course in French, presenting a forecasting method based on generalized theory of transits through numerical example. By generalized theory, I mean including midpoints. That was the course. Here's an example of master expert keyword analysis combined with AI. Interpretation of a famous personal event that happened to a public figure that you know. This example was chosen for its general appeal, not because it works exceptionally well. Hundreds of other good examples could be provided. So if you look at for that person, it's 1 year forecast curves. Around July 69, 26, you got a peak, organization. You got another peak around the same date, excitement. Another peak, surprise. This is a big criteria, would have high level peaks. And realization, 25. And look at the word that you do the transit on the 26th July, and look at the words you get. This is the top words. Nothing, everything is automated. Organization, science, scientist, planning. I let you read. Maybe you can read better here. I let you read silently. If you have 1 hour and good writing abilities and access to the chart and everything, this probably would permit you to produce a good narrative, as good, maybe better than ChatGPT. You see the signatures, there's a lot of midpoint. You missed completely. Let's see here, for instance, achievement. Okay, Mercury, 6 Jupiter. Look at the midpoints. There's a lot of midpoints. Science, spirit, planning. This little icon is to go to the chatbot. First, you have to choose the context event because you have natal or synastry and everything. Here, then you have to choose your prompt. The prompt, is that the word? Your query, yeah. Summarize the current event. Then the words, you choose, you select the words. So I go from 3 up. These are the 5 first words. There's a lot under, and other words would probably mislead you, but you go with the scores, the higher scores, and with the secondary words. Then you paste, you open the chat box, excuse me, not paste, you open the chat box, and here's the query you present. This is automated. This query comes from Mastro, and you can edit in 250 words. I let you read. We're nearly finished. At the end, you got the list of the words with capital letters for the primary words and non-capital letters for the secondary words. Maybe do you have an idea? Organization, science, scientist, planning, event organization, achievement, success. I let you read. Now I let you read silently the ChatGPT answer. The mobility, both a literal and metaphorical essence. This is sorcery. This go further than he goes by probability. I don't know. It's incredible. And I promise not. This is unedited. Scientific community recognizes value, visionary, earning respect in his field. Blah, blah, blah. Can you guess the event? Someone want to talk? Someone who's got a microphone? I'd like to hear you. What do you think?
Going to the moon?
Exactly! Buzz Aldrin moon landing. Thank you. How come it's so accurate? Thanks to AI? Yes, but mostly no, as you're beginning to understand. We're nearly finished. Quality in, quality out. Indeed, if you feel AI correctly, you will generate impressive interpretation. As astrologer, can we and do we want to integrate AI in an open and constructive way? Let's be clear, it's not about replacing the astrologer as a consultant where relationship and emotional intelligence come into play. Conclusion, by embracing the alliance between AI and astrology guided by Mastro GPT, we can explore new perspective. This could make our relationship with astrology more inspiring than ever by clearly showing that astrology is distinct from clairvoyance. Thank you for your interest. This is the end.
Thank you, Vincent. I put in the chat the Mastro software app. It's mastroapp.com. Oh, yes. There you go. Good timing. Thank you, Vincent.
Oh, excuse me. No. Mastroapp.com and
yes.
Thank you for it was longer than I apologize for that.
It's okay. Thank you so much. Next, we will hear from Santino Mancuso, founder and board member of the Cosmobiology Institute. His most recent research on anorexia and bulimia are available on his YouTube channel, Cosmic Cybernetics. Welcome, Santino.
Okay, thank you, Angela. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Sharing my screen. Okay, we're good? You can see my screen. My voice is good. All go here.
Sounds great.
Okay, so what we're doing tonight is we're sharing software that different researchers use and the data. So first thing I'm going to do is tell you what software I use and the data, and I will give you just one example of research that I've done using these tools. I've done dozens of different research projects, but just to get an idea of how some of this works. So what software do I use? I use a few different programs. I use the Sirius astrology software. That's one of the main tools that I use. And there's a conflict of interest here. Just to let you know, I was the head programmer of that software for over 30 years. I'm no longer involved in this. So a lot of us are using tools that we've developed, we've been working with, and that's the case with me. I've also developed some software more recently for doing research. I'll show you a little bit about what that does. I combine that with the Sirius software. I also use the R statistical software. And the way the R statistical software works is you write instructions. They're called scripts. It's like almost like a simple instruction set. So I've written R scripts for different kinds of analysis. So what I do is I combine together the Sirius software with the additional software I've written and R scripts. And where does the data come from? I mainly use AstroDataBank data. We've been hearing a lot about AstroDataBank and the Gauquelin data. Now, both AstroDataBank data and Gauquelin data are contained in Sirius, but the AstroDataBank data is not always updated in the Sirius software. So sometimes I go to the online AstroDataBank that Christopher showed us. I've also done a little bit of research with financial data, other kinds of data, but mostly that's using AstroDataBank data or Gauquelin data. And as I mentioned here, could have conflicts of interest in regard to software and data that I use. Okay, so to summarize, Sirius, R statistical software, plus writing the R scripts, softwares that I develop for research, AstroDataBank data that's included in Sirius, AstroDataBank data from the online AstroDataBank when I want more current or data, Gawker data that is in the Sirius software, financial data from Yahoo and other websites. Those are the tools, those are the resources. Now, when you do research, you're going to do research with what you think works. One of the things we have very little of, for example, is research tools for people that use Hellenistic astrology, that use medieval astrology, that use Vedic astrology. Most of the people actively involved in research are using modern Western astrology. So depending on what you've experienced, what you've learned, what your guess is, what you think works, you're going to try to use the software that's appropriate for it. I use this system called vibrational astrology, which involves all these higher vibrations or harmonics. So I need software that can do that. So for example, the online searches in AstroDataBank using basic aspects is not useful for me, but the data itself is useful. So now Michelle Love, who's here tonight, she did some research using this Sirius software on bulimia and anorexia. I decided to see if I could improve that formula with some new research tools. And I would not have been able to make these discoveries if I didn't build upon what Michelle had found. And what she found in using this vibrational astrology theoretical framework is she found planets like Moon and Pluto, that makes sense to most people, Moon and Vesta, also Pluto with Mercury and Mars in vibrations built off 8 times 2, 3, and 4. In other words, 8, 16, 32, 64. 8 vibration just means divide the circle into 8 pieces. You would have the conjunction and opposition and squares. You also have half squares, 45 degrees, usually called semi-squares, and 135 degrees, which is halfway between a square and an opposition. Anyway, you divide the circle into 8 pieces. And what our theory is, based on Michelle's original research, I kind of simplified it and made a broad context of Mercury, Pluto in these vibrations, Mars, Pluto in the same vibrations, or Moon, Pluto, or Moon, Vesta. So the research that I do is primarily knowledge discovery. I'm going into the data with some assumptions of what I expect to be there, and then run the tests to pull out of that what's there. The people with bulimia and anorexia, do they have these Moon, Pluto in 23 times? What's going on? And what I found out when I did the research, it was this. This is the formula that I found. Let me go back and explain this. I'm expecting this, but what I put into the computer is any planet to Pluto, any planet to Vesta, any planets to Sun or Moon. I put that all into the Sirius software to find out which ones appeared the strongest. And through the combination of research tools, this is what I discovered. So I'm telling you the end result. What I found out is that people with anorexia or bulimia, this is exploratory research, it's knowledge discovery. What they have in their charts is Sun, Moon, Mars, or Uranus in these vibrations to Pluto, Sun, Moon, or Venus in the same vibrations to Vesta, and Sun and Moon in the same vibrations. So when we do knowledge discovery, we're trying to look at data and see what's in the data. There are a lot of rules. You can't just like randomly have things that don't fit together. They have to make sense. So we're looking for 3 things. We want a very good p-value. In this case, this formula, when I compare the people with anorexia and bulimia to the control group, the p is less than 0.0001. In the research I do, we have to have a p-value less than 0.001. Not 0.05, it has to be 0.001 because we're doing knowledge discovery as higher criteria. So let me explain this again. It's very simple. You go into the data, you have ideas of what people who have anorexia and bulimia are. Maybe you think Oh, they have planets in the 12th house, or they have moon square Pluto. Whatever ideas you have, you put into the software as general concepts. And then the software will pull out of those general concepts which specific things are strong and how strong they are. And if nothing really stands out, it won't find anything. And out of that, I need three things. I need a very good p-value, at least 0.001. In this case, I got an extra 0, 10 times better than my requirement. If I don't get 0.001, I throw it out. Not good enough. Number two, the formula has to be elegant. By elegant, I mean I use the same exact vibrations for all planetary pairs. I didn't like leave out 8, 16, 24, and 32 for these aspects. If I did, I might get a better p-value. I could bring the p-value all the way down to 7 or 8 zeros. And, Vincent referred to this also, like you can get fantastically wonderful p-values, but they're just random noise in the data. So I need an extremely consistent formula. Same vibrations, same orbs, and the planetary pairs are fairly consistent. These 5 planets to Pluto, these 3 to Vesta, and the sun and moon, which appears in all of these combinations. And the third thing is it has to make sense theoretically. If I come up with something that I can't make sense of, like if it said Mercury is to Venus, like why would Mercury Venus have anything to do with bulimia and anorexia? I don't know. So theoretically, it doesn't make sense. It might work, but when I try to test with new data, it's less likely to work. You get the idea? Here's the name of the game. The name of the game is, I'm going to find out what's in this data. And when I get new data, will it confirm it? Or am I just looking at random fluctuations? And there are rules that we use in data mining. These are the rules. Extremely good p-value, elegant formula, and make sense theoretically. Now you can deviate from that, but just remember your likelihood of replicating with new data will be very low. The proof is in the pudding. We did this with bipolar disorder. We collected new data and we got the same effect size with new data. That's almost unheard of. In other words, these rules work. I didn't make these rules up. I just took a lot of data mining courses and I learned from the experts, and this is what they told me, and I did what they said. And when I don't do what they say, because I think, oh, I don't believe that, guess what? It doesn't work. They really know what they're talking about. So I didn't invent this stuff. I'm just doing what the professors told me to do. And they said, do this and you'll be able to replicate it. We did that with bipolar disorder. We did a strict hypothesis test, confirmed the model. Unbelievable. Unbelievable to the rest of the world. Astrology actually really works. So I'm showing you in a different context, not the bipolar disorder, but with this eating disorders, how we use the same principles. We came up with a formula that meets our 3 criteria. Now, I'll give you a hint, just a quick peek at some of the things I did to discover this. Like you might say, oh my God, I want to use my 12th house and 6th house and whatever I think is related, to, Pisces or whatever you might think is related to this, ruler of the ascendant in the 12th, whatever you want to do, you can use what your guesses are to see if you can build a good formula using these rules. So I have an appendix at the end where I give you a more complete set of steps. I don't want to go through that because it's a little bit boring right now. I'm just going to show you some of the highlights. Number 1, you create an astro signature. I want to show you the software I used. I used the Sirius software, and there's a feature in here where you go into the research and you click on astro signature and you make an astro signature. So I go in there, I click on this. I'm in the actual program. This is not the PowerPoint. I'm in the actual program. And if I customize and view it, this is what I do to make the discovery. I make a list of every aspect to the moon, sun to moon, Mercury to moon, Venus to moon, Mars to moon, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, any planet to the moon. in vibration 23, in vibration 23 times 2, 23 times 3, 23 times 4. Now, I know this whole vibration thing probably sounds like madness to most of you. Like, what the heck are you talking about? Give me my squares and trines, Santino. I'm feeling lost out here. It's cold and nasty. Where are you taking me? Sorry, it's really not so cold and nasty. You're just not used to it. I have this very, very different idea of what really works in astrology, that we live in a beautiful, complex, intricate tapestry, and the world isn't built out of 12. Just look at my hand. Do you see 12 fingers? So, okay, now I'm getting nasty about it. So anyway, the point is, we think there is this whole vibrational universe that we live in, and that's how astrology works. So I make a list of these vibrations based on Michelle's research and what theoretically makes sense of all of these vibrations to Moon, all of them to Pluto, and then I added Vesta. And then what's the next thing I do? I go back to my PowerPoint. So I make an astrosignature, and then it produces a bunch of results. It tells me I have 74 people who have A or AA accuracy from AstroDataBank. Only 74. Trying to build a model of 74 is not recommended, but Christopher said we use the data we have, not the data we want. So you might, a statistician will come along and say, yeah, you only have 74, you can't do anything with that. Well, tell me about your problems with your research. Oh yeah, I'm stuck with 2. I mean, we're in a real world. Everybody's just doing the best they can with what they have. We have only 74 charts. We're still going to try to build a model with it. So I create the astrosignature and I run it. In the Sirius software, you just click on the button. If I get out of here, to begin the analysis, it does the analysis and it saves the results. Now, I just developed this in the past month or 2 months at most. I like to share the latest cool thing I'm doing, not what I did 10 years ago. So I wrote a program about a month ago, and it looks like this. This is a new program I just wrote. It takes the data produced by Sirius, aggregates. I checked this box to aggregate. It pulls together the 23 times 1, 2, and 4. It pulls them all together because theoretically I expect them to all be similar. Use your intuition, your experience to build the model you want. Since there's no software to do it, and I know how to write software, I write my own program to do what I want to do, because there's nothing out there that thinks the way that I do or does what I want to do. So I write this program. It takes the data out of Sirius, which is nice. I can use that. It reformats it, aggregates it, puts it all together, puts it in a CSV file that I can use the R software. The R software is very, very sophisticated, top-level software for data visualization for all kinds of research. So I'm just sharing with you the tools I use. I don't expect you to memorize or understand or go through this. I just want you to see the forest. The forest is use the astrology that you like. If you are a Vedic astrologer, you're going to have to find something that can do Vedic analysis. I use this vibrational stuff. There aren't tools out there to do it, so I just write my own software, just like Vincent did. He wrote his own software, Mastro. So this is the state we're at with research. We're having to build the tools, create them. All this stuff we're creating as we speak. We're doing this. We live in exciting times to create all these new tools for discovery. So I run this program. It creates the CSV file. Now what do? Now I run R that takes this file and does the same thing that Vincent did with Excel. It runs what we call a regression, in this case called a logistic regression. It runs it, and I'm in this software. And this is what we call a script in the upper left corner. This is the R Studio. So, I forgot to mention that. There's a program called R Studio that gives a nice user interface for R. So it helps you interact with R nicely. So a lot of people use R Studio to run R. That's what I do. So it's like a user interface, just makes it more fun to use R. Mm-hmm. Now you can look at this and you can go, oh my God, Santino, you are really a nerd. Okay, congratulations. I ain't dealing with this, man. Well, you don't have to deal with it. I give you the script, and all you have to do is put at the top the file name produced by the previous program. It's like Christopher said, you don't have to be a statistician to do this stuff. All you have to do is go up here to file name, put in whatever file you called it from the previous program, and then you click on run up at the top of this thing, and it runs it. That's all there is to it. Over here, run. So, there is a learning curve. Anyway, you run this, it produces the results, and it tells me which variables are strong. I pick out the ones that are really strong. I create a new Astro signature with the ones I think work. I run that in series again. I create what's called a shuffled control group. Anyway, there's all these little hurdles you go through, and at the end, you discover a beautiful, elegant formula that has a good probability of working when you test it with new data. And again, the proof is in the pudding. We did this with the bipolar disorder. We didn't have as good research tools then as we have now. If I did that research now, it would take like 10% of the time that it took to do it then. So as the research gets better, the knowledge discovery gets better. Okay, so I'm almost done. What I'm trying to do here, I hope I'm not losing you. I'm just trying to give you an overall view that, I use certain programs. I put in there things that I think are related to what I'm looking for. It pulls out the details of which ones are working. I pull those together. I run different kinds of analysis. Ultimately, I run the people who have the eating disorders with what we call a shuffled control group, and I get a t-val. I run a t-test, and I get the probability, which in this case was less than 0.301, less than 1 out of 10,000. So the best success I've had so far was running a strict hypothesis test, which is pure confirmatory research that confirms the Astro signature for bipolar disorder. When you do research, decide whether you want to do exploratory or confirmatory. I think it's a spectrum. You can build a model and then test it. Or if you're so sure you know what works, you can go right into testing and evaluating. I do a lot of my time building models, and then I test them. Another thing I want to show you, this is the last thing I'm going to show you and we're done, is I use a lot of data visualization. This is when I built the Astro signature for bipolar disorder. It's actually not bipolar disorder. It's the bipolar disorder is a symptom of an introversion-extroversion conflict in the person that runs out, spins out of control. And so we saw vulnerability to mental instability. I applied the concepts of, we're going from bipolar disorder to Marilyn Monroe. I made a prediction based on the formula that should work, looked at what happened when she died of a fatal drug overdose. And I have a graph here for 1962, the year in which she overdosed on the sleeping pills. And it's right here at the peak, the highest peak in the year. This is when she killed herself by, maybe she didn't intend to kill herself, but we don't know, but she just took too much sleeping pills and it killed her at the highest peak. So I use a lot of data visualization to see if the concept works. Then I can run a statistical analysis, but I love data visualization. It tells me a lot about what's going on. Then I can do a formal statistical analysis. I did the same thing for Judy Garland. They were contemporaries. They actually met a few times. They knew each other. They were both singers. They were both actresses. They both died of a drug overdose. And we have AA data for both of them, data from a birth certificate. Here, I ran a long-term forecast for, let's see, this is a long-term forecast. Well, no, it's just the month of June. So this is a forecast for the month of June. It peaks on the day that she died. And then I can put in fast-moving transits like Mercury, Venus, Mars, etc. and I add those into the formula, and then it creates little blips in the overall graph. These graphs are identical. The top one is without fast-moving transits. The bottom one, I added the fast-moving transits. At the moment she died, 8 a.m., this peaked exactly at that time. It's phenomenal. So that lets me know that this looks good, and I can then do a rigorous statistical test on it. So I wanted to show you a few things that I do and the tools that I use. Putting data in, extracting out of it, now using logistic regression. If I have a binary situation, like you have eating disorders or you don't, I use shuffled control groups whenever I can. They're what we call very conservative. If something works with a shuffled control group, it'll work with other control groups. Yeah, so these are some of the tools. I just want to give you an overview of what I'm using. You got an idea of what Vincent's using, what Christopher's using, and there's an endless number of research tools and many things we have to still create. You'll get these, you'll get the recording and the PDF of the slides, and this is a more detailed, it's just an appendix of the steps involved. I've also made YouTube videos about this. I've made like 800 videos. So that's it.
Yep. So
Thank
I
you.
put the link to your YouTube site in the chat also, so people can check that out. I also put the link to the Cosmobiology Institute YouTube site that has Michelle's presentation on eating disorders. That was December 6th. If you want, anybody would like to refer to that. And Santino's presentation. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Thank you guys very much. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg on the research software that is available out there. Unfortunately, there's not enough. There's not enough people doing it, which is why our organization exists to promote evidence-based research in astrology and really anything involving the cosmos in that sense. One of the things too that CI is committed to, Santino, I don't know if you want to touch on this, is a data bank. So we don't have enough data. And I think that that was kind of a common thread through everybody's presentation, is that we need more data. We need more information that is reliable. So one of the things Cosmobiology Institute is dedicated to is creating or establishing a database. And I think that that will be coming up not soon enough, really, because we need that in order to continue the research. I would like to open this up for any questions or just a quick panel discussion in case you guys would like to make any additional comments on anything. You're free to put questions in the chat or just unmute your microphone if you would like.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the attendees. I mean, we've been talking for a long time. Anybody out there? You can address it to one of us or all of us. You could put it in, like Angela said, put it in the chat or unmute yourself.
We have a lot of people that are in different time zones. We had 155 people register for tonight's presentation, which is a lot. A lot of them are all over the world. So I'm hoping if you have any questions that you would like to email us, the email address is info@cosmobiologyinstitute.org. Any questions from anyone? We will be having, over the next few months, I think a need for doing workshops for some of the software programs is very important. So we have some volunteers, some of the people who spoke tonight, also Michelle and Starlene, have volunteered to help us do a workshop day. And we might have several of those for different types of research software where you're free to answer or to ask any questions, to work alongside with us. I think that that is important as well, that people really get their hands on the software programs. Okay, did you guys that presented have anything else to say?
There must be at least one question out there. Anybody? You can type
we
it.
have a, oh wait, hold on. Yeah, he said there was somebody that spoke in the comment that said if I had an idea for research, I would write to the info at email for advice on where to begin. So yes, that's a good
good.
point as well.
Good. Well, I don't have anything, Christopher, or, okay, looks like somebody unmuted. Go ahead. No,
No, I
maybe,
don't see that.
maybe
Okay.
not. Well,
Well,
Christopher or Vincent, do you have anything you wanted to add that you didn't get to, or any?
No, I just answer a question. If people have question about the Mastro, I'm ready to answer. Nothing to add. Yes, no. Okay, forget it. You may be referring to the prediction I wanted to do for Mars. You want me to show that? But
No, I was just wondering if there was something that you wanted to add that, or Christopher or anybody.
No. Okay.
Okay.
No. I'll put
Well,
it on Facebook.
We also
Thank
have
you.
research meetings for the
Yeah, I was
Cosmobiology Institute.
Yep. If you would like to join us on the fourth Tuesday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern, Santino hosts a research group, and we would love for you all to join. When you exit the meeting, you will get a Zoom survey that pops up. It's just a few quick questions. Check yes if you would like for us to send you an invitation to the research group. You can always go to cosmobiology.org to sign up as well. And thank you very much for being here. Thank you to our presenters. A link to this recording will be sent in the next few days. Have a wonderful evening, morning, or afternoon, wherever you may be. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye all.